Hello, my name is Courtney Edwards, and I am recording my video for the critical thinking model. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the problem that we're going to be identifying. So it is going to be in the area of language arts, and I currently teach third grade students, so I'm going to model it as I would for my third grade students. The problem that we're going to be modeling is what is one character trait of the hare in this story, the tortoise and the hare, and why is that your choice? So why do you feel that's the character trait that fits the hare the best? This is currently one of the stories that we are reading in my class. We're talking about fables, and so this is one of the stories that my kids will be working on next week, and so I'm choosing to model a think, pair, share critical thinking strategy, or we learned it in this course as a think aloud strategy. So the first thing that I like to do with my students is I like to kind of make an anchor chart or give them a poster of their expectations for the strategy that they're about to use. So I have created a anchor chart right here, and it says think, pair, share. Think, I wrote that I want my students to think about what you know or learned. That's to help in answering the question or the problem. Then pair means that they're going to find a partner that they're going to be able to work with, making sure it's a partner that's not going to make them distracted or goof off with. And then lastly, they are going to share their thoughts and ideas that they thought of during their thinking time. So they're going to share those with a partner, and then we're going to come back together as a whole group, and students are going to share and have the chance, if they would like, to tell other members in the class and myself what they talked about. Some assumptions that I think could be thought of during this activity is that the hare is not a very good character in the story. They're not going to be able to think of any good traits about the hare, which that is okay. That's one of the reasons we're doing this activity, is so they can learn about character traits. The 3 different branching points that I have come up with or addressed are 3 different ways that my students could think and decide what would be a character trait of the hare. I have that they might think that he's cocky because he gets so far ahead in the race that he decides to stop and take a nap. I think my kids could go down the direction of thinking that the hare is rude. They could think that he's rude because he doesn't ever think that the tortoise is going to win, and he doesn't think that the tortoise ever gets anywhere because he's so slow. So that's kind of rude. You're being rude to the tortoise by assuming all these things about him. The last branch that I think my students could go down would be they think that the hare's lazy. They think he's lazy because he doesn't need to practice. He thinks he's going to win, so he decides to take a nap. The first thing that I would have my students do, which I'm going to model, is the thinking portion. So I give my students 1 minute to sit and think about the answer to their question. So again, the problem or the question that we're trying to solve in this modeling video is, what is one character trait of the hare, and why is that your choice? So I'm getting students to not only answer the question of what they think the character trait is, but I'm also getting them to think of the why portion, so giving evidence to their answer. I like to have my students jot down notes if they like. My students have whiteboard circles that I like them to use in order to jot down a few notes so they can keep those in their mind. So I'm going to start by modeling this process. So the first part is think. So I'm going to give myself a minute, and I'm going to think, what is one character trait of the hare, and why is that my choice? I'm going to use my pen and my notes paper, and I'm going to jot down some notes. Once I am done jotting down my notes, the thinking portion is complete. I like to give my students at least a minute because I feel like that's adequate time to think of their thoughts for the problem or question that I proposed, and it's going to eliminate any students from misbehaving or getting off task because I've given them too long. Once students have come up with their notes, the next part is to find a partner. So if I were a student in my class, I would say, okay, do you need a partner? Let's be partners. Awesome. We have our partners. Now we're going to share. I give my partners 1 minute to share, so 30 seconds each, share their thoughts, talk about it, and then I'm going to call the students all back together. So as if we were students in the class participating in the pair share, I'm going to show that as an example. What did you come up with? Okay, I like those ideas. My ideas that I came up with was I thought that the hare was cocky because he is going to win the race and he thinks he's going to win. He doesn't even think about the tortoise ever winning. I also jotted down that I thought he was mean because he said mean things to the tortoise and he didn't think he was going to win the race. That would be the example of students sharing their thoughts. In order to call my students back from the activity, I just do a simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Voices are off. We're back together. This is now a good time to introduce my support for the diverse learners in my class. I have a lot of students who have a hard time expressing their ideas and their thoughts, and they don't really know how to start the conversation with a peer. So we've really been practicing this skill. One thing I came up with for my support were sentence stems. So for my students who need help figuring out what they're going to say with a partner, I would have this displayed on the board when students are sharing with their partner. So the first sentence stem says a character trait of the hare is ... They have to then put their character trait that they thought. The next part would be I think this because ... So after they have identified what they think a character trait of the hare is, they would say I think that this is because he's rude or he treats the tortoise not very nice, something like that. I've created a second sentence stem being the hare is blank because blank. So it kind of just puts these two together but shortens it for some of my students who need a more concise little sentence stem rather than two different ones. I would say that having these displayed is a great idea because students aren't having to use their thinking time, which is the real critical thinking aspect of this activity. They don't have to spend that time coming up with, okay, how am I going to say this to my partner when I get with my partner? A lot of students I feel like get some anxiety when it comes to having to share with a partner because they don't want to be embarrassed, they don't want to feel like they don't know what they're saying. So having these eliminates that anxiety of not knowing what to say for the activity, because all they're going to think about during that 1 minute of thinking time is what is my answer to the problem or question that my teacher proposed. The last part of the Think, Pair, Share activity is now sharing aloud to the class. So I'm going to call on any students who would like to share what they talked about with their partner. Not everyone has to share, but those who want to will be able to. So now let's model that. Courtney. My partner and I talked about how we thought that the hare was cocky because he thinks he's going to win the race. He doesn't think he needs to practice at all. We also thought that he was mean because he says things to the hare that aren't very nice, like you're slow, do you even get anywhere? And that's what we thought when we talked. So that is a strategy that I currently use in my classroom. And I think it's a great way for students to have that thinking time and giving them the opportunity to think about what they're going to answer before they're asked to answer it. I feel like a lot of times as educators, we quickly want a response to a question. So for example, if we're teaching a math lesson, we ask our students a question and we quickly want a response. We don't give them that adequate thinking time when it comes to answering questions. So in order to have our students think deeper and critically think about why they're answering the question and what they're going to answer, we need to have that few minutes of thinking time, which is why I love the think, pair, share method, the think aloud method, whatever you'd like to call it. I think it's a great critical thinking strategy. I hope you enjoyed this video.